TikTok time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D Wood. I'm trying not to. Come on, guys. I need to just not look over. I need to just never look over at the chat while I'm trying to do a little intro because people saying Mike Wanger.
Really?
You guys are messed up, man. Can't even do an intro anymore. All right, just have to remind myself not to look over at the chats. And we said 10 minutes and no David. I fear the Zoot got him. Oh, we might be hearing about the Zoot at some point. I might bring up the Zoot at some point. But no, guys. Got a very serious topic here. Some people have...
She got broken.
Some people got problems in life, ladies and gentlemen. Even prophets have problems sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. And without the proper treatments that are available to people today, well, you just have to compensate in other ways. Oh my goodness, look at this. Hey, Mary, I'm guessing you did not see the last live stream.
No, not only very brief moments of it here and there.
Oh my goodness, we got the new thing, and it is Mama. Make Allah mother again.
Nice.
You know, you're familiar with Korah, aren't you?
Yes.
So Korah.
Oh no, is this about her fatherhood, ridiculous
No.
fatherhood argument? Is it even worse?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. So we hadn't seen that. But we watched it. And so, yeah, she's a fatherite. She's one of the fatherites who believe that it was okay in the past to refer to Allah as father, but then he abrogated it. He abrogated it because people got confused. He didn't know people were going to get confused by it, and so he had to change it. He had to abrogate it.
So she practices kufr according to Ibn Kathir. But that's okay. I mean, like the Muslims today, they don't care about all of that. They throw everybody under the bus.
Yeah, and we actually read Qurtubi, who was quoting someone who was saying, hey, maybe the Christians just mean it, call Jesus the Son of God because he's kind and merciful, and Allah's kind and merciful. So maybe in that sense, and he said that's kufr. That's kufr too. That's unbelief. You call someone the son in any sense, that's kufr, right? So anyway, but our good friend Korah, she wanted to use this response, say that, yeah, in Bible times, it was okay. Allah allowed it. Later on, he abrogated it. And then she tried to explain that it was in a metaphorical sense that he thought it was okay. And so Christina, Lady Logic, says, well, okay, if you're saying that it's because he's the creator and so it's okay to use the metaphor of calling him father, can we call him mother? Because, mother produces things. So can we call him mother? And she says, no, because you don't have that precedent in the Bible. Right? And then she was quoting the book of Isaiah for something. And I said, huh. I said, hey.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, Jai.
Like a woman in labor.
I said, Jai, what's their favorite chapter from Isaiah? And he goes, 42. And I go, let's check out Isaiah 42. And that's where God compares himself to a mother in labor.
Yep.
And therefore, but here's what we notice. She thinks, okay, there was a precedent for calling Allah father because of the Old Testament. But it was abrogated because he's very clear in the Quran. Don't call him father. I said, did Allah abrogate calling him mother?
Oh, never did. Never did.
Yeah, so that still stands. And now we can call Allah mother, but not father. And so we have make Allah mother again. We're going to get little hats printed and stuff like that. But then it was just your mama jokes for like an hour straight after that. People coming up with all sorts of variations on all the Muslim sayings and all this. And anyway, we're going to have to make a video out of that. But we were cracking up so much. It was this is Korah's legacy at this point. She's going to be remembered for your mama jokes about Allah forever because she caused it. Anyway, it's an airtight argument. If the father rights are correct and her reasoning is correct, absolutely indisputable, we can call Allah mother, but not father. No way around it. And then we're starting to wonder things about like the mother of the book. And it's like Allah talking to a mirror or something like that. Anyway, we got to figure some stuff out, but not looking good.
We start calling it the doctrine of Tawhida, with one and only true mother. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. So pretty bad. But guys, we are here to address. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, he's got a disembodied uterus, remember? So that grasps him around the hips, groin area somewhere. So maybe his uterus ran away and it needs to come back, and then he will be the father mother. But we can only call him mother.
Mm-hmm. No, Allah is a asexual hermaphrodite. He's both mother and father. He creates with it. He's like, so he asexually reproduces.
So Satan.
His children. Yes, so is Satan.
It's weird stuff. Mm-hmm. All right, but we have enough of this joking, enough of these your mama jokes that were so common in the last live stream. We have to talk about something much more serious and not funny at all. The fact that Muhammad had a micro penis.
He did.
He absolutely did. And we can show it from the sources as to why this. So if something comes from Allah, then whatever personal defects, hang-ups, preoccupations the humans might have should not affect the eternal book. Because remember that the word of Allah is eternal. It should not have been shaped by man, and it certainly should not have been shaped by one person's obsession and preoccupations. If we can show that Islam would not have taken the form that it has taken were it not for Muhammad's personal defect, then we can show that it came from Muhammad's own mind. Because to be obsessed with a defect, and especially a defect like this, in a culture like the one Muhammad came from, is very understandable. This is a culture that valued virility over all. Women were like much less worthwhile than men, although not treated as badly as they were after Islam. They were still treated quite badly. They were looked down upon, but especially being a defective man was an especially bad position to be in. And if we can show that this shaped the introduction of Islam, how it was introduced, how it progressed, what it teaches now for this world, and the rewards that it promises later in paradise, then you can tell that this comes from the mind of a man who had these issues. And that's what I am planning on doing today. So it is a bit of a ha-ha tee-hee subject, but it has very serious and important implications for Islam, and it reveals that Islam comes from just an ordinary guy.
Quick question. What, you use the mic on your computer, or because you have a mic?
I should be using this mic right here. Should I double check to make sure that is what I'm using?
Oh, I'm just wondering because you had a mic. You also have a mic on your head, so I was wondering what you're using.
No, I'm using the better one on the computer. The one on my head is very, very loud.
Wait, you have a mic there in front of you? Tap it. Make sure that's what it's picking up.
Is that it?
I hear nothing from that mic.
Now I'm very confused. Hang on, give me 1 second.
Tap the mic on your head. Nope, nothing there. Is it picking up? Is it picking up straight from your computer?
It's picking up. Hang on. How about this one? Is that good? I have 4 microphones here. This one? This one? This is very weird. See, this is the default, but
it's the gin.
This is the communications one. How about that one? Well, tell me if, is this louder yet? How about this one?
Nope, sounds the same. I can't tell what is picking you up.
Here. It's really weird. Oh, maybe if I don't click done, it doesn't change. Try this one.
Everything you're doing is not doing anything at all. Okay, that's a mic.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Okay. This is my big mic. Sorry about that, guys. It normally automatically selects the correct one. I don't know why it went weird this time and decided to default to some random microphone, because there actually are 4 microphones in play, but it always goes to the normal one. And this time it decided to be crazy. Apologies to everyone. I hope this sounds good now. Is the loudness okay for everyone?
Still sounds a little weird, but it's okay.
Let's see. Yeah, it's definitely that one now.
Okay.
So I scratch it. Yeah.
Now, if I recall correctly, a little while back, were you saying that it was the Andrew Wilson debate that made you start thinking about this and notice things from the Muslim sources?
Yes, it actually was, and I will kind of show that as we go along, where I realized that he had to be right about, said blind pigs get acorns, right? And he had to be right about Muhammad's particular physical problem. I had already realized that he definitely had a physical problem, but I had guessed that it was a different physical problem called hypospadias. But I believe that the medical condition called a micropenis, which is less than 2.95 inches fully deployed, is going to be the more accurate. I'm trying to avoid YouTube freaking out. Is going to be the more accurate.
Don't worry about YouTube. I didn't even bother trying to monetize this one. So you're good. Should we go ahead and check out that some of that Andrew Wilson clip? Because it was pretty darn funny. So guys, this is so Mary knows the Muslim sources really well, and Andrew Wilson brought up an interesting argument at some point and made Mary think, that does fit a lot of interesting things in the Muslim sources. And guys, we want to remember, for the future, we want to remember Andrew Wilson for the good times when he was making funny points and making us crack up laughing, and not for him destroying his entire group. Yeah, you want to remember people for the positive things. But anyway, here is let me get the clip here. Had this from way back. But this is Andrew Wilson. He was debating Muslim Lantern, and Muslim Lantern agreed to debate him on Muhammad's relationship with Aisha. Sneeko was moderating, and like the funniest part, apart from this just being a hilarious point, was that Sneeko couldn't help but laughing, and he kept trying to cover it up. And he's a Muslim, and he's got a guy in front of him saying that Muhammad had a micro pee-pee, and Sneeko couldn't stop giggling to himself and so on. Pretty crazy times. But guys, so the general idea here is Muslim sources say that Muhammad consummated a marriage with a 9-year-old. And for a while, Muslims tried to say, no, that never happened. Eventually, we kept quoting their sources, showing them their sources, showing everyone their sources, and serious Muslims were forced to admit that Muhammad consummated marriage with a 9-year-old. But their defense is that it didn't harm her. It didn't harm her, so it was okay, because even though she was 9, it didn't harm her. And so Andrew Wilson points out, well, if you're saying it didn't harm her, then Muhammad didn't harm, and when he penetrated a 9-year-old, it didn't harm her. What can we deduce from that? And so Andrew Wilson's going to break it down. Let's check out a little bit of this just for the historical background and for the important point he is making here.
Okay, opening statement from Andrew Wilson.
Yeah, so I've tried to keep the opening statement somewhat concise. That way I'm not gish-galloping all over the place, and that way my opponent can take a single point at a time. I think that that's the fair way to do things. I also have a visual demonstration here. In regards to the idea of child brides and prepubescent sex of children, my opponent has stated, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not saying that these are his exact words, sex with a child is okay in a marriage context as long as it doesn't physically or psychologically damage the child. Though he didn't use the specific word child, I'm inserting this word because I think that under the criteria he presented, it would qualify as a child.
Don't say the word inserting, Andrew. It's not good here.
And by the way, just to be
this
clear,
is before
there's
Zoot jokes.
There's absolutely nothing nothing in Islamic sources that says anything about psychological harm to any woman ever and why it should matter. Psychological harm is not a concept in Islam.
Yeah,
Let's
total
just be
nonsense.
blunt.
Made up nonsense, guys. Made up nonsense.
But even then, let's let them go with that.
Though I don't think he owned the position, opting instead to make claims the semantics were incorrect, I'm ready to defend those semantics. I have a clip here for proof that this is indeed what my opponent has said on this topic, which I'm happy to send over as soon as the opening is done. To give you an overview of the absurdity of this position, Muslim Lantern and God Logic were attempting to argue the position of sex with 9-year-olds. In this case, it's because God Logic had brought up Aisha. I am confident that God Logic considers Muhammad to be pedophilic. I am confident that this is true. I'm not sure what age Muslim Lantern actually believes Aisha to be. However, most scholars I've read in classical sources place her at about 9 years old.
Yeah, we have over two. So Andrew's kind of new to some of this Islamic stuff, but yeah, we have over 200, over 200 Muslim sources saying that Aisha was 9 when Muhammad consummated the marriage with her. So the only way around that is to just say the sources are garbage and can't be trusted. Muslim Lantern is not going to go in that direction, so he'll grant that Aisha was 9.
It wouldn't really matter, though, if Muslim Lantern does or does not believe Aisha's age. Is this? He does not need to stand by the idea that he believes that. All I need is that he's on record saying that he believes the age of consent itself is just based around puberty, with no real clarification there as to what that means, and we'll dive
The age of consent is not based on puberty.
No.
into that.
No, it's not. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So all girls who are 9 are women, according to Islam, first of all. And secondly, like regardless of pubertal status. And secondly, that determines at what age girls can be married completely against their will by their guardians.
Yeah,
so if you
because
have a
the silence-
3-year-old,
Yeah.
well, if you have a 3-year-old, she can be screaming. She doesn't have to even be silent according to Islamic law. It doesn't matter. Her father is the one who's married her, as long as it's to the appropriate person. As long as he doesn't marry her to a black man, if she's an Arab woman, or a poor man if he's rich, then it stands.
Yeah, but I'm saying also when there's hadith where Aisha asks, okay, what if she's shy and she doesn't know how to answer? And it says that her silence is her consent.
And that's
So
for all
when you-
virgins who are older.
Yeah, for all. So you could have a young girl, she's 5, 6, 7 years old, scared of her father, not saying anything, and she gets married off to a 50, 60-year-old, just literally sold off like that.
And
So
by the
there-
way,
there is no
yeah.
age. There is no age.
And what is required for her to consent is for her to be silent for a moment. So you will see many of these weddings where they haul off 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, not very often 9-year-olds, but little girls. They haul them off because you can't be married totally without your consent when you are above the age of 9. So you get hauled off, you get thrown into a room, they have a big party, and all the women are like, oh, calm down, girl, dear, just calm down, stop crying, okay? It'll be
Oh,
all
she's
right,
so
stop
shy.
crying. And then
Don't
as
worry
soon as she
about it.
stops
Yeah.
crying, that is her moment of consent. She has stopped crying and screaming, so now the marriage is solemnized. Like she can say no, but she stops saying no and falls silent. That is consent. That is consent, and you see it. You can go see documentaries about girls there's a documentary about girls from Myanmar getting married off after they become refugees in Bangladesh, and shows exactly this happening. Girls being kidnapped in Kyrgyzstan, and exactly this happening. Because her silence is her consent, so just get her to shut up for a second and she's married.
We do have this really weird comment from a Muslim. Allah Only Amazing God says, with lies, Christianity dies. D. Wood was a Muslim and satanic worshiper. Almost like you're using those as synonyms. Muslim and satanic worshiper. That's weird. He have been exposed. That's good to know. And then Thaddeus replied, why are you afraid of Muhammad's micro member?
There we go.
Very rude, very rude. All right, let's check out Sneeko here.
But let us begin with some visual examples of what this has to mean. A prepubescent vaginal depth, which I'm going to represent here with this socket, it's about 2 inches.
Look at Sneaker.
Just so you understand. This is the average depth of the vagina in a prepubescent girl and girls in early puberty, which really doesn't stop until you reach the end of puberty, where it ends up being somewhere around 4.5 to 5.5 inches. I have the medical documentation to prove this. The average Arab's penis is about 5.5 inches. I'm going to represent that here.
Watch Sneeko, guys. I mean, you want to watch Andrew because he's giving his visual aids, but he's pointing out, okay, you're saying Muhammad did not harm a 9-year-old. The length of the vaginal canal of a 9-year-old is 2 inches. Okay, so Muhammad didn't harm her. Good to know.
Yeah.
What's up?
And to be clear, part of what happens in puberty is that the skin and other soft organs and things around the vaginal area, the walls get much thicker, much more elastic, in order that intercourse is not a problem. Let's say that intercourse is not going to hurt anyone. Normal intercourse
Won't destroy her.
It won't destroy her. But before then, it's fragile, thin.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant for penetration. It's not meant for intercourse. So those physical changes have not yet happened to the walls of the vaginal canal. That they are frail. The flesh is not able to handle it. And so if there was a strong mismatch, there would be a great deal of trauma, as we find in Islamic law often happened. There are many provisions in Islamic law about what happens when you, calculate wrong, and that little girl that you thought could bear the weight of man gets torn such that she has a fistula between her vaginal canal and her anus, so that for the rest of her life she leaks feces. This is something that they needed to have laws about in Islamic countries. In every single fiqh, there are laws about what the status of a woman is when she was taken as a little girl. This happens to her, and she is torn. And
Hey, Mary, I have a question.
Let's
say a husband does cause that in a little girl. What's the punishment for that for the husband?
It depends on, there's never a severe one. And it depends on which the school of fiqh it is. In the ones in which he is still allowed to have intercourse with her afterwards, there's no punishment. He usually can't divorce her, but that's it. So,
and is it usually reported?
No, it's who would it be reported to? That's within his rights. He just made an oopsie. So the punishment is that he can't divorce her. That's it. And other ones, he has to pay her mahr and then give her food and shelter for the rest of her life. So give her a little hut somewhere. But you have to understand what this is like for a person like that at this time. There is no way to close off the anal cavity any longer. So as you digest food, it just seeps out of you for the rest of your life. And this is still a rather common trauma that happens in Islamic countries during birth because of their female genital mutilation practices, which cause scar tissue, which then cause tearing. But when you are talking about men owing women, it's always because of them causing the harm when they have intercourse, which is directly connected to having intercourse with little girls who have not developed elastic vaginal developed walls yet, and men are of more normal sizes.
I read some horror stories about this, like in the world today. In Northern Africa, read stories. There's a medical organization that goes around giving surgeries to wives who have gone through this, giving surgeries to repair them from the fistulas, And
Yeah,
so,
that's the Fistula Hospital in Addis. I don't know how to say it. The capital of Ethiopia,
yeah.
isn't it? I have donated to that cause before. Those are mostly from birth, but again, that's mostly caused by female genital mutilation. Even those birth
Well,
issues.
the one, I
But
mean,
yeah,
the ones I was reading about was from, yeah, from husbands, and
oh,
it was
that's right.
seriously messed up because they were talking about, this, you know, you're basically like unclean to your husband, but you're still married to him, and so you just like cook and stuff like that. Anyway, they're excited that they get to, you know, have the surgery and stuff. But anyway, so I was reading one, and they gave the woman the surgery to repair her, but they told her, and they made it very clear to her husband, she needs time to heal. And he went and had sex with her that night and
Yep.
completely tore it open. And they're
Hmm.
like, if you can't wait one night, then we're not. There's nothing we can do here. And it's like that. That's the complete lack of self control and so on. Anyway, sick stuff. Sick
I
stuff.
Yeah,
I
they have
think
no reason to have self control. There's no idea in the mind that self control is something that they should have.
oh,
You
men
get
don't have
convert
self
your
control at all.
ideas.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. You get, oh, lower your gaze. But then you get, Allah has ordained for you all the zina that you're going to do. And it's never zina with your wife, no matter what. Never.
Yeah, never. What is very disturbing is that this topic, while you're gonna have Dawa people and other Muslims being mad that we're talking about this, that Christians have a stream on this, this is not something foreign in Islamic communities. Matter of a fact, the whole idea where I remember the very first time I was listening to a stream and David mentioned about how Muslims have laws about making sure you do not make the two holes one. That is something I heard when I was young, just in passing, watching TV, or during Friday sermons at at the mosque. These things are common because this idea of marrying people young is not something that's foreign to people, especially during the time where you have a lot of Muslims that would come. Like right now, the Muslims that here, at least in the West, a lot of them have come from like what, first, second generation American Muslims, the people that ended up growing up during that time. A lot of these Muslim people have either just come from overseas and they bring in the stuff that they have brought up. Right now, societies, I guess because of the internet now, where you have to come up and make up excuses and they can't hide things. But the idea is like all this to say there's so much that I remember hearing as while I was Muslim in Muslim circles. Now outside the Muslim circle, you're hearing the whole contradictions, like being in both worlds right now.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it,
Where they tell you, no, no,
like
no, that isn't it.
yeah, all the like the utter like blatant lies, because it's a fact. It's like without lies, Islam in fact dies. It's like, and it's like they know this, but they choose still to believe it, and all for what? The detriment of little girls, the psychological abuse of little girls. For what? Because
Yeah.
they want to keep everything in the family, whether it be land, their money, whatever it is. Just here, it's sick, it's twisted. It's
And
terrible.
yeah, they give women in the Deobandi circles, which is, the Taliban is Deobandi, but they aren't the only Deobandi folks. They give a book called The Heavenly Ornaments to women when they marry that talks about all of their obligations and this, that, and the other. It includes in there as something that's very useful for women to know the rules of what happens and when you're unclean and when you should do this and when you should do that if you have happened to have a fistula caused by your husband having sex with you because you were married as a tiny little girl.
Oh, they can marry you off while you're still in the womb. They can marry you off while, if a girl, okay, for example, while my mother was pregnant with me, my father already had my marriage arranged to my cousin. These things are done. That is the reason why my father and I estranged. It's not even because I left Islam. This thing is done constantly.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Let's check out Andrew's.
Arab's
argument.
penis is about 5.5 inches. I'm going to represent that here. Again, we're just talking about averages. I'm going to put these side by side so that you can understand the distinction
Look at Sneeko, everyone.
here. You see is 5.5 inches. You see this is 2 inches. Okay? To express what this looks like in comparison, it's very important that you visually understand this.
This is Sneeko, the Muslim revert hero of Dawa, covering his mouth to cover himself, cracking up at Andrew Wilson doing the math and concluding that Muhammad had a micro PP. But let's see.
Express what this looks like in comparison, it's very important that you visually understand this. In order for Muhammad, who I think definitionally would be a pedophile, to have done 0 damage to Aisha, which is in conforming with the Muslim lantern conditions of, quote, not hurting the girl. In this case, I would say Muhammad's penis would only be able to be roughly 1.8 inches in order to not actually 1.8 damage this woman. 1.8 inches. Now, the reason for that is because we have the medical documentation of what is vaginal tearing and what vaginal tearing would be inside the wife. If he was anywhere even close to the average, this would cause severe damage. So we either have to conclude the damage threshold that ML is talking about here is much different than how ML presents it, or that Muhammad had a way smaller than average penis. I'm willing to accept either correction.
Did you catch that, guys? So he pointed out that, okay, if you're saying you didn't harm or damage her, then either you need to clarify, like, okay, he damaged her, but not to this extent. You need to modify what you're saying by damage. He would obviously damage her if her vaginal canal is 2 inches long and he was like average size or something like that. So what is that horrible typing? So either you need to clarify and explain what you mean by damage, or Muhammad was less than 2 inches. Take your pick. He said he's fine with either one. He's fine with either one.
Fully deployed.
Yeah. So take your pick. Either he did damage her, but you're saying it didn't reach some threshold, like massive damage that like destroyed her life or something like that. Or he actually did not damage her and he just did not damage a woman or girl whose vaginal canal is about 2 inches long.
To further demonstrate the truth of this claim, you can find more info on this in the growth of the birth canal in adolescent girls. This is done by Marquisa Lavelle. She's a PhD. She goes further into why pregnancy at a young age is generally damaging to a woman, but it's also demonstrating the physiology in the difference of canals and the difference in penis length, the difference in vaginal length when it comes to people engaging with child brides. She goes into various problems of the pelvis during childbirth for prepubescent girls. And here, if you'll humor me, I'm going to give you some highlights. Again, trying to keep this somewhat brief. The size of the birth canal is smaller in the first 3 years, even past the first age of the period, than at age 18 years old. That's why we have a standard for this, by the way. People pretend it's arbitrary. It's not arbitrary. We have standards for a reason. If you even go by region, this is true. Basically, all over the world, this is true, that prepubescent girls are still going through.
I'm impressed that Muslim Lantern is remaining so calm right now. I mean, he's got Andrew saying all this stuff. You had Sneeko giggling himself silly and trying to having to cover his mouth. And Muslim Lantern's just cool as a cucumber there. Maybe he doesn't understand exactly what's going on and how his prophet's getting wrecked. But hey, hats off to him for that.
Still going through puberty, and so their canals are growing properly. At 18, only minor differences are observable in the size of the birth canal. This is important. At 18, only minor differences are between women in any way substantial in the birth canal. Although girls with early periods are appreciably shorter and heavier, their late maturing counterparts at this age, there really is no distinct or huge variable difference. That's why waiting until that age is usually a good idea. She goes into the various problems of this. Now, to be clear, my job is to defend, to attack this position. His job is to defend it, okay? I need you to understand that I'm not going to go with any whataboutisms. So if you say, what about the Christians, though? It's irrelevant. That is for me to defend in the next portion of the debate on the Trinity. This is purely for him to defend the Islamic position on underage marriage. It is not to do whataboutism. It is not to say, what about the Christians, though? What about them over there, though? That's all logically fallacious argumentation designed specifically to obfuscate away from the points which are being made, which is the justification inside of the Islamic worldview for why it's okay to have sexual intercourse with girls as young as 7, 8, 9 years old, why that's okay, why that's moral from their paradigm. I do not have to defend a paradigm here. It's not important that I defend a paradigm here. It's only important he defends his. The paradigm I'm defending is the Trinity in the next debate. So he can ask whatever questions that he wants in regards to clarification on what it is that I'm asking him, but it is not at
You even have Muslim Lantern kind of grinning right now.
all pertinent in any way, shape, or form. Whatever he thinks the Christian belief on this is,
What's wrong with
that
this
is not
guy?
what I'm here to defend. He is here to defend the Islamic paradigm. With that, I'll yield my time.
With that,
And I do want to point out that the standard for when can you have intercourse with a little kid, it's when you believe that the little kid is able to bear the weight of the man. In order that this rupture of parts, as they so eloquently call it in Islamic fiqh manuals, does not occur. That is the standard. It's supposed to be based on the Sunnah of Muhammad. This indicates that because Muhammad did have a very small member and thus was able to have intercourse with an underdeveloped girl, which is not possible for the vast majority of men, it introduced a standard, a norm into Islam, an idea that grown men could do this to girls and not cause them a lot of damage, as long as the girl is chubby enough. That's what matters, if she's chubby. And they actually doctored a hadith to make Aisha chubbier, even though it is very clear in her own words. She said that she was thin. She said she was so thin that they could not tell whether or not she was inside of the howdah on top of a camel. Nobody could tell because women then were very thin. But then they insert this hot and cold humors based fattening through cucumbers, which have no calories and cannot actually fatten you. But because it's wet and cold, it's supposed to make you fat, because it's supposed to be the opposite of dry and hot, that would make you thin. And so that was inserted just to give a rationale for how you can determine whether or not a girl could be one with whom you have intercourse with. And they put the standard on the girl rather than the man. They do not consider the man or his size, because to do that, they would have to realize in their heads that there was something abnormal about Muhammad, that this was possible with him. So that is kind of what we're dealing with right now in Islamic law. Men are having intercourse with little girls because Muhammad had a micropenis, bluntly. And
catch that guy. Hang on. That's important. That's important to emphasize. Explain that real quickly again. What you just said. The reason this is a thing now. The reason this is still going on. The reason this became part of Islam
is that he had a micropenis. Thus, he was able to have intercourse with a child and not harm her. And because they refused to acknowledge that this was unusual, they put the onus on the girl on how robust she appears, as to whether or not she could bear the weight of the man, because they are all in agreement that she was prepubescent for a very long time, by the way. Until she was 14, she was prepubescent. She did not have her first period until she was 14 years old. So for the next 5 years, she did not have her first period. And because Muhammad had a tiny penis when he did this, it didn't cause her to tear apart. Of course, it was terribly psychologically damaging for her, but it did not cause her serious physical harm. And that is only possible because he had a very small penis. And because he did not cause her serious physical harm, he didn't have to deal with this in any way. There are no repercussions for him. And he became the standard of conduct. So continuing into today, you cannot outlaw having intercourse with very small girls and just say, well, she's a chubby 3-year-old, she's a chubby 5-year-old, and it'll be fine because of Muhammad's example.
So what you're saying is that marrying and having sex with prepubescent little girls has become part of the sunnah of Muhammad because he had a micro penis.
Yes.
MashaAllah, all praises to my mother Allah. My metaphorical mother.
I'm in a pretty awkward spot here, similar to the one Sneeko was in. Poor Sneeko, he was having to be a serious Muslim hosting a debate because he wanted to defend Muhammad, and he knows these Islamophobes are going around making fun of Muhammad for having sex with a little girl, and so he picked the Muslim he thought he could, who would defend this the best, against Andrew Wilson. And notice they went with Andrew Wilson, who isn't as familiar with the sources as lots of other people, but Andrew came with a brutal argument, and then Sneeko couldn't help but laugh, even though it's mocking his prophets. And that's the situation I'm in, because Mary's saying all this horrible, evil stuff, and then I have to look and see Din Cohn Zena saying, explains why he advocated squatting to pee. They hadn't invented the tweezers yet. I'm guessing that's part of Mary Harp's evidence that's going to come up.
That is part of my evidence that's coming up.
Wow.
I have quite a lot of evidence about him having to have a very small member, outside of the fact that he did not damage Aisha, who described herself as very thin. Let us remember.
So before I close out this video, just wanna get to the part where Sneeko starts giggling again and trying to cover it up, and then covers his mouth, because I remember it's small on the screen now, but I zoomed in and Sneeko is like dying from this.
And here with this socket,
Look at
it's
Sneeko.
about 2 inches, just so you understand. This is the average depth of the vagina in a prepubescent girl and girls in early puberty, which really doesn't stop until you reach the end of puberty, where it ends up being somewhere around 4.5 to 5.5 inches. I have the medical documentation to prove this. The average Arab's penis is about 5.5 inches. I'm going to represent that.
Look at Sneeko.
Here.
Look at Sneeko.
Again, we're just talking about averages.
Sneeko sees the tape
I'm going to
measure.
put these side by side so that you can understand the distinction here. You see, it's 5.5 inches. You see, this is 2 inches.
He's trying, guys.
Okay. To express what this looks like in comparison, it's very important that you visually understand
Can't
this.
hold back. Look at him. Oh,
In order
he had to
for
cover his
Muhammad-
mouth. There it is.
Who I think definitionally
That's
would be
prophet.
a pedophile, to have done 0 damage to Aisha, which is in conforming with the Muslim
So anyway, that's that, guys. Oh, poor Sneeko, poor Sneeko. Oh, I wish someone, when he was at Sheikh Asim al-Hakim's house, I wish someone had shown Sheikh Asim that video and said, hey, what do you think about Sneeko giggling himself silly while people are making fun of Muhammad? What do you think about that? So anyway, guys, that's the clip. That's the clip that made Mary start thinking, well, this would actually make sense of a lot of material in the Muslim sources. So she's going to take us through that. Let's take these first couple of super chats real quick. I'll zoom through them because we want to get to this, and I know she has lots of stuff. So we'll zoom quickly. TikTok, don't kiss that rock. That's a good line there. 1 zoot for every minute you're late, David. One zoot for Muhammad. Mum law. They were coming up with all variations of Allah. Mom law don't need no man. Best of the single moms. Allah is best of single moms. Mummy Allah gave Momo a micro PP. Yep, that is true. D Wood on okay, perfect time. Yeah, that's a reference to Cora after everyone just completely destroys her argument, and then she'll say, "Okay, perfect." Hey David, always confuses me to see how many Islamic African countries there are given what Muhammad had to say about them and the Arab slave trade. That's the thing, guys. They conquer places and then, they don't tell people things over time. But when they're doing dawah, they just lie to people. And so people don't know. You ladies should take your shihada tonight. Get it? Shihada. Did Muhammad have microaggression too? Yeah, I've seen in the chat some microaggression jokes. Aisha's hymen probably didn't break. Mo was so tiny his wives didn't notice. So Muhammad
Maybe that's why it took them a year to out him for running around to different women's houses and not actually having intercourse with them.
We have, so Muhammad is basically the Arab Eric Cartman. Allah only made it appear that we could hear Mary. No wonder Allah wouldn't meet Mo face to face. Who has a harder time seeing their wang? Sam, Shamoon, or Momo? What's wrong with you guys, man? What's wrong with you guys? Sam out here catching strays. Not like Muhammad caught him, but Dawa counter argument, he only put in the tip. Yeah, they only come up with their defense if you really popularize something and they're forced to defend it, but that's what they'll have to say. If this argument spreads around, yeah, but he didn't hurt her because it was just the tip. Ya Muslim, I have a small matter to discuss with you. I guess Muhammad was never a big tipper. Jack Ray with the jokes here. Is Islam good for Christianity because it keeps us alert and on our toes? Well, you can always look on the positive side, and it, does make people start realizing they need to take some things seriously. Do you read part of the super... David, do you read part of the super chats and disread in parts? Is there any reward other than being late in this stream and camera failure in the next? That's a parody of Surah 2, verse 85. Y'all should check out that verse. We and Orthobros can come together agreeing Muhammad had 1.5 inches. Yes, we can agree. Even the Orthobros. Guys, I'm sorry, but I took my Motherite Shahada today. Korah's dawah was too powerful. Yeah, Korah's going to be famous for a long time. And we have apostate of Allah. Maybe we'll see her sometime. Muhammad's pee-pee so small. Miracle of the micro stream. Now we know why Zakir Naik says, brother make a good point so much. His standards were really low. And
there we go.
It said he has the strength of 30 men, not the size. He doesn't have the size of 30 men, just the strength of them. All right. Okay, Mary, you're the one with the content.
Right.
How you want to do this?
Let's go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint, and I will not look at the chat because you guys are completely...
It's a lot.
They're completely depraved. The people in this chat are acting like the Orthobros.
All right.
Here we go.
Okay. So we are talking about... You can put us on the side, too. I don't know whether or not we are on the side.
I don't know unless you... I don't know how unless there's a part of your screen that you don't use, basically.
Do what? Oh, so I'd have to make things bigger that way?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
How about that?
Oh yeah, doesn't have to be that. Doesn't have to be that small. Doesn't have to be Muhammad small. Oh yeah. So, yeah. Hang on. Let me. I'm really bad at doing stuff I'm not used to. But let's see. Show picture in picture. Let's see this. And hang on. Let's see. We got that, and then I can shrink this, not quite as small as Muhammad, but I can shrink this. And how about that? Does that work?
Bam! There we go. That'll work.
There we go.
That'll work.
Now, when we eventually want to leave this presentation, then I got to figure out everything over again.
Well, we could stay here for quite a while.
It's crazy because I've been using this program for 12 years, and I still don't know the basic stuff like this.
Right. So, well, it takes time to devote yourself to it, but so we find in the sources that there is definitely something wrong with Muhammad. Um, we, but his sexual inadequacy that we find in all of these things that appear to be wrong with him, once we understand that he suffers from the medical condition called a micropenis, it explains that he, the very beginning of Islam, why it started, how it started. If Muhammad had had kids normally, like most men did, there wouldn't be Islam at all. And I'll show evidence for that in a moment. It explains Islamic rules that men still live by regarding urination. So Muhammad's issues are the reason for the rules regarding urination. Because in general, men with normal equipment do not have to worry about getting urine on themselves more if they are standing than if they are squatting. That's not really a thing that men have to worry about given their equipment.
And let me just add, because you two are ladies, but this is something ladies don't always know, but all guys know. You can like write your name in the snow and stuff like that in cursive. They wouldn't have had to deal with that much, but I'm sure they did the same, like with the sand and stuff like that. Like, hey, look, I just wrote Surat Al-Fatiha in the sand and pee-pee and stuff like that. But some people might find that difficult. So anyway, I'm saying that would account for the data. So you're pointing out here that Muhammad's issue explains a lot of data, which is normally a pretty strong case for a hypothesis.
Yep. And the third thing that explains, and other things really don't, is Muhammad's and thus Islam's eternal preference for little girls as sexual partners. If you can have a grown woman or a little girl, in Muhammad's mind, the little girl is a better sexual partner. And that leads to suffering in this world, which we've already discussed. We won't go through that again. But it also shapes the promises in the next world, which we will go through. So, Muhammad is often said to have 4 daughters, yet at the same time, it is without question that he was at least almost infertile. He was subfertile from his middle age onward. He had no other attributed children that were not to Khadijah except for the one to Mary the Copt. And in fact, he was also entirely impotent during his 9 wives period. Around 629, he was unable to have consummation with any women. That was the time whenever he was running around to the houses saying that he was having 9 women in one night. And yet, at that very same moment, the women are talking to each other and going, he hasn't done anything with me. Has he done anything with you? And so then he goes, oh, I was bewitched. Thought I was having intercourse with all these women, but I wasn't. I got bewitched by a Jew. And so, because that's what Jews do. They make you think that you're having lots and lots of fun in bed when you're not. That would be like a terrible curse, wouldn't it? To think that you're having a great time every night when you're not. Anyway, so, but what actually happened is that he became entirely impotent in the sense that not only was he unable to father children, but he was unable to perform at all whatsoever near the end of his life, which, he had declining health too. Could have happened to him with poison anyway, but it's yet another data point that things are not quite normal going on with him. So it is almost certain that Ibrahim was not his son. So Mary the Copt's son was not Muhammad's, and I'll show you evidence for that first. But it's also very, very questionable that the 4 daughters attributed to him and the probably 2 sons who died were even his biological children either, and I will give evidence for that as well. So we'll start with the easy one, which is which is Ibrahim, Mary the Copt's son. So we find in Sahih Muslim that Anas reported that a person, this was a Coptic slave whose name was Mabur, is what it's given as, and who was supposedly the cousin of Mary the Copt. Because, of course, what are you going to say if you have a girl and a guy, and then one other person who speaks your language, who are all given as slaves. Oh, that's my cousin, and we Christians, we don't marry our direct cousins, so he can come and talk to me. He's my mahram to me. And so you spend time with the person you actually care about, who is a person from your own country, who shares your own religion. And back then, by the way, you could get married in Christianity just by saying the words, I marry you. And since she was being just raped by Muhammad, no Christian person would consider that to be any kind of authentic connection. They could have been married and met each other when they could in secret. So he was charged with fornication with Mary the Copt. Thereupon Allah's messenger said to Ali, go and strike his neck, so go chop his neck off. So Ali came running after him, and he found him in a well, making his body cool. Ali said to him, come out, and as he took hold of his hand and brought him out, he found that his sexual organ had been cut. So they somehow did not know up until this moment that he was supposedly a eunuch all along, which means that guess what? His voice changed. He looked like a man. He grew facial hair, but they bring him out and suddenly, he's oh, look, he's a eunuch. He's been a eunuch all along. And so I am trying to ignore everyone, by the way. I'm doing a pretty good job.
That's kind of what's hilarious.
It's making it worse.
You're completely serious, and we're trying not to bust out laughing here.
So anyway, and then so supposedly this guy came, and he's been a eunuch all along, but somehow no one ever knew it until they go and grab him. What's way more likely to happen is that when Mary the Copt realized that she was pregnant, and she realized that there was no hiding it, he probably managed to emasculate himself in order to avoid and say, oh, no, I've been like this all along, because he knew he would be dead otherwise. So this was almost certainly what happened in this case anyway. Because how would you just not know that this guy is a eunuch all this time? Anyway, he comes back to, or the secondary point can be that Ali not wanting to have the humiliation of Muhammad, not wanting to see him embarrassed in front of everyone, seeing how desperate Muhammad was to imagine himself this child's father, he might have just chopped off his balls then instead and just been like, we're just going to keep this between us. And then that's what happened. But Ali came back and said, but he doesn't even have his testicles, so how can he be the father? Don't worry about it. He's totally your child. So Aisha's role in this is well attested in a number of sources. And this is her supposed confession that she was just being jealous when she said this. But here's the story. So Mary, or Maria, was presented to Muhammad as a slave woman, and her cousin was with her. She also had another female was with her too, was given to someone else. After a while, Mary became pregnant. Upon that, the people started slandering that since the Prophet of Islam needed the child, he related the son of that slave man to himself. So people were running around saying that Muhammad is just desperate for a son. So he is counting the slave girl's child as his own, even though it isn't, even though we all know that the real father is this other Coptic man. That says, since Mary didn't have enough breast milk, they fed him by sheep's milk, and that's why he was fat. This is also not actually true. There is a narration about the child being snatched from Mary the moment she gave birth, stolen from her, never given back, and instead given to a husband and a wife who were, the husband was a smith and the wife was a smith's wife, and that's who raised them. Why is this child being yanked away from Mary at birth? Well, it would make sense if he wanted to punish her because he wasn't really sure in his mind whether or not the child was his, but he wanted to believe that it was his, so he kept the child around. but he kind of thought it wasn't his. So he gave the child to a person who had a very smoky house. This is described in the Hadith. He gave the child to someone with a smoky house. At that time, one of the theories of illness was bad air. Bad air makes people die. So what does he do? He gives the child to a family with a very smoky house. But anyway, Muhammad said, doesn't he look like me? And Aisha said, I jealously said no. And then the Prophet heard about these accusations and sent Ali to kill her cousin. So that's kind of the background for that. So, he was bringing the child around to be praised. Like, isn't this like isn't my son super healthy and fat? And she says, well, anyone given sheep milk will get fat. So she's also disparaging how the child looks as well. So is there any confirmation that we get only from Jibril? There is no other evidence outside of Muhammad supposedly hearing from Jibril that, yeah, this kid is definitely your kid, that he was in fact Muhammad's kid. Like, that's it. So there is another wife who said something about Muhammad and his son, specifically at the death of Ibrahim. And there are slightly different versions of this, which are kind of interesting in their variants. So one version that they're given, so Muhammad married this woman, did not consummate the marriage, probably couldn't at that point, honestly, and divorced her after his son died because she said if he were a prophet, the person who is dearest to him would not have died. So he got rid of her then. The other version of this has her saying, if he were a prophet, his son would not have died. So here it's the person who is dearest to him, and in another one, it is his son. And that's kind of interesting. That discrepancy is interesting because the interpretation is if he were a prophet, his son would not have died. Could also be, well, that's not even his son. So it doesn't matter that he died. But this one had to be taken as actually referring to Ibrahim. And Ibrahim, whoever he was, would not have died, except that he's not a true prophet. So it's interesting that they took out the ambiguity of the insult in this other variant, which is the more popular one, by the way. The Al-Tabari's is the one that you get way more often than the other one. So, what about Muhammad's daughters? He definitely has 4 daughters, right? Totally has 4 daughters, except for the Shia say, no, he has 1. They just throw out the other 3, and they will say that, oh, they were Khadijah's from before the marriage, except that is not chronologically possible. They were definitely born to Khadijah during the time that they were married. They were married for an extended period of time. There is no alternative times of when there just isn't. And in fact, some Shia sources want to make Khadijah into a virgin and then try to assign other children to completely different people because they just don't like her actual past, which was having been widowed and or divorced a total of 2 times before Muhammad and having several very healthy children who lived to adulthood. She had 2 who died and 3 who lived to adulthood before Muhammad. And they don't want to have that because all Muhammad's sons died. She had 2 other sons who made it, but the ones attributed to Muhammad died. Well, are they even Muhammad's at all? So there is a type of marriage, and Sarah can help me here on the pronunciation, but istibda,
yeah.
Which is like swap or exchange is what the word means. And this was described by Aisha, and I cut out the first pre-Islamic description of being a marriage that she had, and I'm just sticking with this form of marriage because this is the one that we care about here. She says the second type of pre-Islamic marriage was that a man would say to his wife, and then she says after she had become clean from her period, send for so-and-so and have sexual intercourse with him. Her husband would then keep away from her and would never sleep with her till she got pregnant from the other man with whom she was sleeping. When her pregnancy became evident, the husband would sleep with her if he wished. Her husband did so to let his wife sleep with another man so that he might have a child of noble breed. This explanation for it makes absolutely no sense. Because any child that was born within your marriage would be counted as yours. It would not be a child of a noble. It would be your child. It would be your heir. Why would you want a child that the other man has no obligation to this child? This was a form of essentially a living levirate marriage. So essentially you have another man get your wife pregnant if you can't get her pregnant so you can have heirs with her. And this stuff about clean from her period and unclean and all this is all not pre-Islamic practices. They had no practices about waiting periods. Aisha's just making guesses about this because she just assumes everybody has waiting periods. I mean, so much comes from pagan era. Certainly these waiting periods, the Iddah would come from the pre-Islamic period too, but it doesn't. So this seems far more likely to be a form of wife lending, the purpose of which would be for a man who is feared impotent to get a child credited to him. And again, this is the word here is exchange. So very likely the men actually straight up traded wives. So one slept with one, the other one slept with the other one's wife, and then they each accounted the children that were born to the wife to the one who was married to her. That is probably what's happening there. And he wouldn't be staying away from the woman at this time. He would be deliberately also having sex with her so that he could more fully convince himself that these children are actually his. And I have a strong feeling that this is what happened with Muhammad, and I'll explain why in a second. But first, there's the interesting fact that the same word about swapping wives actually appears in the Quran for 420, I believe, 420. And here's the Arbery translation. If you desire to exchange a wife in place of another, so this is trading out, this is swapping, and you have given to one 100 weight, take of it nothing. What will you take of it by way of calumny and manifest sin? So this was after Muhammad saying that you need to abide by these iddahs, you need to abide by these waiting periods, you need to, follow all these rules, so you can't just switch wives for the night. And so he's saying that, look, if you're going to do this, then you have to fully give them, you have to do the divorce, you have to give them their mahr, you have to do everything you're supposed to do, and you can't just swap out wives. Given that it's the exact same word as in Aisha's description, very suggestive. But there's also some very interesting evidence for wife swapping within how Muhammad treated the fact that he didn't have any living sons. So Muhammad adopted Zayd ibn Haritha to be his successor, to be his son, to be a successor early on. And that was very, very, very bizarre because he had already made Ali ibn Talib he was already a foster child to him, essentially. He is raising Ali because his uncle didn't have the money to support him. Usually in this case, you would adopt that child. You would adopt your close relative whom you are raising as your son. And additionally, you would do this by designating him your heir and marrying him to one of your daughters. You would have arranged this, even in the pre-Islamic times. Arranging a marriage before puberty was very common. Consummating it before marriage did not happen. But arranging a marriage before puberty was extremely common. What did Muhammad do? He arranged marriages for 3 of his daughters with 3 completely different men. Not with the one that made sense to arrange with, the man in his house. Instead, the sons of another uncle, Abu Lahab, became one of the husbands, or became two of the husbands to two of his daughters, and then one of Khadijah's relatives became a husband of a third daughter. Why would not he have arranged at least a betrothal with this between Ali, who should have been his heir, and one of his daughters? Well, if it was known, or if it was just known between the men, between Al-Talib and Abu Talib and Muhammad, if it is known between the two of them that Abu Talib could very well be the actual father of Fatima and the other three daughters, then they couldn't have arranged a marriage. And this is the only reason they would not have arranged a marriage, and he would have chosen someone else to be his heir, like a random slave from completely outside of the society. There is also, by the way, a very obscure source that I wasn't able to find today, in which a man goes up to Muhammad and suggests swapping for Aisha. And either Christian Prince or Rob Christian had the source. He put it up on screen sometime several years ago. I have seen it. I didn't grab it then. I haven't been able to find it today. So it may be that the whole wife swapping thing got the kibosh put on it when somebody was like, hey, can I have a run with your favorite wife, Aisha? And he's like, no. So this not only gives evidence that, yes, he participated in this, but yet he probably did it with Abu Talib, which is why Ali was not married to a daughter of his until after Abu Talib was dead. And then Muhammad could say, oh, these are definitely my daughters and totally my daughters. Ali, you can totally marry her. Which also means that most likely he married his half sister, which is even more messed up, but it's Islam. What you gonna do? There is a further piece of completely wacky evidence of Muhammad jumping into his aunt's grave. This too has become part of Islamic law. Islamic law is based upon the interpretation of this event as Muhammad having intercourse with his aunt, his blood uncle's wife, he had intercourse with, in her grave, according to the understanding of the people who saw him jump in around them. I think that he was actually trying to raise her from the dead, but if I saw someone just lying on top of someone else who was dead, my immediate thought would be that they are in massive grief or something like that. It would not be that they're having intercourse with them. Why did everyone's minds immediately go to the idea that he was having intercourse? Well, that would make sense if they had had this wife swap marriage previously, where he had intercourse with his aunt while she was alive under other circumstances. So why wouldn't he now? Why would he not make her one of his wives and consummate the marriage before she was buried so that she could definitely be in Jannah and be one of his super special wives in Jannah instead of going to some random other Muslim man, because, of course, her husband is famously in hellfire. So here is the event. I, Muhammad, put on her my shirt that she may wear the clothes of heaven, and I slept with her in her coffin, in her grave, that I might lessen the pressures of the grave. She was the best of Allah's creatures to me after Abu Talib. And an Arabic scholar explains the Arabic word here for slept, it literally means lie down with her, but it's often used to mean lay down to have sex. So Muhammad is understood by Islamic scholars, to be clear, by Islamic scholars as saying that because he had intercourse with her, she has become like a wife to him, so she will be considered like a mother of the believers in Jannah. So this supposedly would have prevented her from being tormented in the grave, since Muslims believe that as the people wait for the judgment day, they'll be tormented, so she gets lessened, etc., etc. But this is also why we have necrophilia allowed in Islamic law, because if Muhammad is believed to have intercourse with his aunt, she was probably believed to have intercourse with her because he had been known to previously have intercourse with her, then of course husbands can have intercourse with their wives after they are dead. I mean, what are women for? After all, women are literally dirt for men to plow according to Allah. Right, Sarah? You're plow dirt. That's it. That's all you're good for. So you're plow dirt alive, you're plow dirt dead, and we have the example of Muhammad jumping in the grave with his aunt, which was interpreted by people as definitely being intercourse because most likely people already had a knowledge of him previously having this wife swap arrangement with his uncle. So
well, maybe it was the only woman. Maybe it was the only woman that didn't judge him for his micro pee-pee. She was dead.
I guess.
The first time. I don't even know if this is.
I mean,
I'm about to say what I'm about to say is it's probably not even appropriate. But then we had this whole chat. This is the first time a woman told him, didn't tell him.
She didn't complain. She's the only woman who never complained. There we go. So anyway, this is an article about necrophilia and Islamic law in present day Islamic countries, and specifically this one's about Egypt and the opinions of Al-Azhar University. Sarah, is there an institute more prestigious for the study of Islam than Al-Azhar University?
Al-Azhar University is the number one place we can go ahead. It's the most prestigious for Islam. Continue.
Yes.
I want to know what they said about Muhammad's micropenis.
Well, what they said about necrophilia is that we ought to make necrophilia legal.
Oh, I'm sorry. Banging dead people.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
They're like, why do we not have in our Egyptian law proper Islamic law that ought to reflect the permissibility of banging your dead wife because Muhammad banged his aunt. So there we go. So again, and here adultery would be zina, right? It would not be fornication. Yeah. The books of Al-Shafi'i, Al-Hanbali, and Al-Hanafi reveal that sex with a corpse is not zina, is not fornication. It's allowed. Why? Because we have the prophetic example of it. So that is the context in Muhammad's lifetime. We've already said that him having intercourse with Aisha sets up the precedent for all Muslims to this day not being able to deny that it's totally permissible to have intercourse with a small child. And it doesn't matter what age, as long as she's chubby, she should be able to withstand it without being ripped apart. No thought given to the man. I mean, of course, the whole idea is preposterous and revolting, but there's no thought given to the man. Why? Because you can't imagine bringing into consideration Muhammad's penis size. Can't be brought into the conversation. So it all has to be pinned on the girl. Now, Muhammad was, I'm pretty convinced, was in this wife swap relationship, had thoughts about why he didn't have any children of his own, even though he kind of wanted to believe that they were his. But at the same time, his wife had previously had 2 sons who had grown to adulthood. Now their kids now die, and the sons that she's having now die. And Abu Talib, who ought to be impregnating her, right? He has 4 sons. So why does Muhammad still have none? What's going on? Is he cursed? What's happening? So he has all of this pent up insecurity about his sexuality. Even if you say that you absolutely believe that those 4 daughters are Muhammad's genetic offspring, even if you make this claim, he only has daughters. He's called the cut off one. He's mocked for not having sons, which was linked in the ancient view to giving to the woman an insufficient amount of male vital force through your semen to be able to produce a male, because the idea was that if you get enough male vital force, then you get a boy. If you get insufficient vital force, then the woman's femininity overwhelms the man's masculinity and causes you to have a girl instead. So if you have a girl, it's because you're bad at sex. If you can only have girls, and if you don't have boys, it's because you're bad at sex. What does Allah supposedly say in the first revelation ever to Muhammad? No, it's about me. I decide about mankind. I make mankind what mankind is. I decide whenever mankind comes. I decide whether or not it comes male or female. I make these decisions. You're fine, Muhammad. I have just chosen this for you, but you're super special because you're my prophet. And you are definitely not sexually unable. You're definitely not sexually inferior. Definitely not. I'm the one who makes these choices. It has nothing to do with you. That is what this first message is. Declaim or read in the name of thy Lord, the one who created. He created mankind from a blood clot. And then the second part of this is the entirety of the first revelation, by the way. The rest of the surah came later. Proclaim or declaim or read, and your Lord is the most generous, the one who taught by the pen. He taught mankind what he did not know. So he's saying, I'm the one who knows. I have the source of all the knowledge. I'm apparently the pagan god of writing, but that's for another time. But what I do is I create what kind of child, whether or not a child grows in a womb and what kind of child it is, that is all my activity, my responsibility. You do not have a sexual problem, Muhammad. You are beloved of me, and no, there's nothing wrong with you at all. And as we mentioned before, there is another indication that something else is wrong with Muhammad's junk. Because Aisha said, whoever has narrated to you that the prophet would urinate while standing, do not believe him. He would not urinate except while squatting. And there are a bunch of other narrations on this topic. Almost all of them very clearly say that he only urinated while squatting. I think only one of them said that he did while he was standing. People even said that he urinated like a woman. Why would you do that? You would do that. There is a reason that if I pee in the woods, I squat. Why do I squat? What happens if I don't squat? And I run down my legs, all right? If you had so little going on down there that it would run down your legs, what do? You squat. If you are a normally equipped man, even a little boy, trees are well watered in the forest when there are little boys around, right? And they don't pee all over themselves, yet we find that Muhammad squatted. And here's the thing. It is inherently more dangerous, let's say. You have to take more precautions to do this while squatting to avoid splashback than you do if you're hitting something far away. If it's far away, then the splash can't reach you as well.
Yeah, I can verify that. Not from myself, but someone told me. This was way back, and it might have been Islamicize Me or something like that, but it's where we put it in a video. So it was either Islamicize Me or I mentioned it in a video before that. But this high school kid messaged me. He said he lived in Dearborn, and he said he was on the football team at his high school, and all the Muslim players convinced him to convert to Islam, but then they told him he had to pee squatting, and he it was the message he sent me was curse laden, but he said he messed up his Nikes when he tried it, and then he freaked out and left Islam because he messed up his Nikes when they made him squat to pee. He said he went behind the bleachers on the football field and messed up his Nikes and stuff. Oh no, that was before Islamicize Me, because that was the basis of that scene in Islamicize Me where John McCrae messes up his shoes. It was because that kid told me that story. So yeah. That is significantly more difficult to be squatting and have any accuracy than if you're standing up, where you generally have perfect aim. And again, we could paint the Mona Lisa.
But for some reason, Muhammad was a squatter, and not only that, he continued to be a squatter whenever he became convinced that urine is a cause of going to hell, to have torment in the grave. The main reason why, so the Jews had adopted at this time this idea of kind of this purgatory in the grave. So before the resurrection, you are tortured in the grave for all of the sins that you have committed. This is not a universal Jewish belief. It was an idea that some Jews had at this time that Muhammad picked up on and then made way more extreme, because it wasn't that extreme in the Jewish thought. But there is a Jewish idea of this, that you would have to work out all your own sins in the grave. And this Jewish woman managed to, Aisha didn't fall for it, but Muhammad did. Because why? Because he was preoccupied with the fact that something was wrong with his junk and weird things were happening. He's not normal there. And so it became an obsession with him and an area of preoccupation with him. So whenever this Jewish woman comes up to Aisha and goes, hey, the torment of the grave, it's mostly because of pee. And Aisha's just like, no, you're lying. You are just lying. And she said, oh, no, it's true. We cut our skin and clothes because of it. So what she means is, if we get a little bit of urine on a piece of clothing, we will cut it off. And in fact, if we get a little bit of urine on our skin, why, we'd rather cut it off than be tormented in the grave by being tortured over the piece of skin that you have on you that once touched urine. And Aisha is not buying this, but then Muhammad hears this and he believes it. He takes it in. They worked on a campaign to deceive him into this, and it worked. But why would they pick that? Why would they pick that of all things? I mean, of all the bizarre things, almost certainly they found out that he peed sitting down because he peed outside. He was a weirdo who was scared of the toilet gin. Toilet gin are going to get you up until at least 628. He was terrified of toilet gin. And so he wouldn't let any of the Muslims urinate or defecate in, you could pee in a bowl indoors at night, but for the most part, then they would throw it out later. But for the most part, they went only outside, including him. He went outside all the time, outdoors. And so people would see and be like, why is he always squatting? Why is he always squatting? The dude's squatting when he pees. Something must be wrong with him. That's really weird. Maybe he's making a huge mess. Well, let's convince him that you'll be tormented in the grave because of urine. And I actually believe that these are some Jews who know some things about Christian practices, who are here making fun of Christians, because they would cut off pieces of their clothing and then dispose of them respectfully if they got the wine of the Eucharist on them at this time. So I'm thinking maybe that's where she got the germ of this idea and then ran with it. But for Muhammad to be snowed into this absolutely ridiculous thing and then make everyone squat, well, I think that has something to do with something being wrong with his junk. And we also know that Muhammad constantly told stories of the prophets to make the prophets similar to him. So the first time he told the story of Moses and Pharaoh were from the same people. They were the same ethnicity. They were the same people. They were the same group. But the Pharaoh made a division of them and mistreated some of them and killed their sons. So in your original story, they're the same people. That's why Moses is given as an example of a man who comes with, it says that the prophets all come with their own language to their own people. And then right after that, Moses is the next prophet talked about. Why? Because in Muhammad's original telling, they were from the same people. And Moses was from the people of Pharaoh. And there are traces of this all over the place. But the reason for this alteration, before he got called out and had to undo some of it, why? Was specifically to make Moses more like him. He called himself, I am the Moses of my people. And one of his opponents, he is the Pharaoh of his people, of our people, all being the Meccans. And so he made all of the prophets more like him, and of all the prophets, the one he made most like him was Moses. He wanted Moses to be like an exact parallel to him. And then with Moses, we get this weird story where a rumor's running around that there's something wrong with Moses's penis. And thus, while Moses was bathing one day, a rock near him grabbed his clothing and rolled away with his clothing. It ran a stone, stole his clothes, so that Muhammad had to run after the clothes, and all the people saw him naked and went, oh my goodness, his penis is just fine and totally normal. What is this? What is this story doing in here? Well, the story's in here because Muhammad wanted to let everybody know that his penis was fine by saying that Moses's penis is fine. That's the point.
Mary, we're having a very serious serious examination of the chats over here, and someone asked, I have a question. Is there a source that said Aisha ate the cucumbers to get chubby? So someone is asking about the source.
Yes.
That's Bukhari, isn't it?
I think so. It's that or Muslim. It's on Sunnah.com. Here,
Yeah.
I'll find it.
Yeah,
It'll be
or
real
you
easy.
could just look up cucumber on Sunnah.com. But yes, that's in the Hadith. Her mom decided, which is like Mary already pointed out, there's almost no calories in cucumbers, so it makes no sense that she's like, I'm going to fatten her up with cucumbers. You'd have to eat like 10 million cucumbers a day. But weird stuff. But the idea was, had to fatten her up because she wanted Muhammad to be able to consummate that marriage with her daughter. Good mom. Good mom. Top-notch mom.
And again, it makes total sense in the medicine of the day, which was all about
I
cucumbers.
found it. I found
There it
it.
is.
It's
Yep.
Sunan. It's Sahih Sunan Abu Dawood 3903. It says, my mother narrated Aisha, al-Mu'mineen, the mother of the believers. My mother intended to make me gain weight to send me to the house of the Messenger of Allah, but nothing which she desired benefited me till she gave me cucumber with fresh dates to eat. Then I gained as much weight as she desired. And then it's also found in another one, again, Sunan Ibn Majah 3324, and Sahih Bukhari. No, that's different. I saw the Prophet eating fresh dates with snake cucumbers. What is
that one's just a what's the word I'm looking for? A prophetic food. Remember that everything that Muhammad ate is the best things to eat. So that's a prophetic meal. So you should have it because it's good for you.
See? I'm gonna put it in the chat. Ay.
So.
All right, back to being serious.
All right. So, what would cause both infertility and high splash damage rates? And this is why I thought about before is hypospadias or micropenis. And I thought hypospadias initially. Why? Because if the opening is really far. Okay, sorry. To be clear, hypospadias is whenever your urethral opening is not at the tip of the member, but is rather up the length of the shaft some amount. And if it's far up the shaft, very often you can't have any kids because you're not getting the sperm where it belongs. And that also explains him being covered in semen, which I forgot to put in this, by the way. The fact that he was covered in semen, somehow, whenever he was having intercourse, he would get things, places where I don't quite understand. Don't get it.
Well, there are multiple explanations for the semen all over him. We'll just leave it at that. But
But
that is a possible
when
explanation.
that's happening, when it's happening with his
GL
wife.
Kelby.
Yeah.
It's GL Kelby.
So Muhammad had semen all over him from many sources, very frequently, constantly covered. But when it was happening, when he
With
was
his
just around his wives, it's obvious that he was having some issues there. Yeah, we can agree on that.
Right. But then I realized that, wait, micropenis, whenever Andrew Wilson had that, I'm like, that is a much better explanation for the fact that he not only married Aisha and had intercourse with her and did not severely damage her, but also that he considered this the best kind of marriage. It seems like for him, you want to have the peg fit the hole, and for him, this is clearly the best hole because it's the one that fits the peg the best. Why else would he have such a strong preference for it? Because, again, trying not to be too graphic, women do not produce material that make intercourse more pleasurable until they have passed into more mature stages of so that they are reproductive age, and therefore they make reproductive lubrication. She would not have that at that age, and yet for him that is better. It is better to have a little girl who's very small and not built for that and does not have any lubrication. For him, that is better. Why is this? The micro penis fits much better. So, again, Andrew Wilson, he famously pointed this out. I believe that he's actually correct. I revised my previous opinion as to why Muhammad was so messy with urine and issues. And here's the thing too, whenever you have a micropenis, sometimes the thing that causes you to have that can cause you to not fully well-developed gonads too. So a good portion of men who have a micropenis, they have a problem with development such that they have a problem also getting women pregnant. So that is consistent with infertility, that he would have other issues with other things not fully developing as they should have. Now, note, I am not just saying that Muhammad thinks intercourse with little girls is preferable. This is known to his own followers. He says to Jabir, my father died and left behind 7 or 9 daughters, and I married a woman. Muhammad said, did you get married, O Jabir? I replied, yes. He said, is she a virgin or a matron? I replied, she's a matron. He said, why didn't you marry a virgin girl so you might play with her and she with you? And I said, and by the way, the things in parentheses is not what playing with means, just to be clear. But anyway, he says, I said, my father died leaving 7 or 9 girls as orphans. I did not like to bring a young girl like them. And the term here used for young girl is meant for prepubescence. It can also sometimes be used as slaves. This is obviously not a slave in view here. It's a little girl. I am not interested in getting a little girl like them. So I married instead a woman who can look after them. There are other variants of this where he says that I need to marry a woman who can teach them manners, who can brush their hair, and here, who can look after them. So this is implying that what Muhammad is suggesting is someone so young that they wouldn't be able to teach manners, look after children. She's prepubescent. Mm-hmm. She can't look after a child. Take care of children's hair, that would be too young. And rather than going, ew, that's not what I meant by a virgin, Muhammad says, may Allah bestow his blessing on you. In other versions, he says, you can marry a woman for 3 causes. You can marry her for her wealth, you can marry her for her piety, or you can marry her for her beauty. In context, marrying someone for their beauty means choosing a little girl who can't take care of a child, who can't teach manners, who can't brush someone else's hair. That is what it means in context. That is how Muhammad defines beauty. And he's saying that by choosing a woman for her piety, her good works, for the things that she can do in her service, Jabir here is choosing a better part because he is giving up on this frivolous beauty thing that, it does not get as many wonderful eternal rewards. However, you do get rewarded by having these eternal rewards later on in the form of the Houris. And the Houris are described, again famously, as having swelling breasts. But the word here for swelling, it's budding, like forming a bud on a flower. Barely, but not blooming, budding. So Ibn Faris says, Ka'ab comes from a sound root that is indicative of a thing beginning to develop and emerge. From the same root comes the word Ka'ab, which refers to the ankle, which is the bone on the two sides of the lower leg where it meets the foot, and the word Kaaba, which refers to the house of Allah, which it may be exalted. So called because of its prominence and square shape. No, it's not. It's a long word. But anyway, a woman is described as Ka'ib when her breasts begin to develop. So that is the reward in heaven. Why? Because beauty for Muhammad is an itty bitty little girl whose breasts are just barely beginning to take shape. So another Islamic source says, we may say something similar about describing a woman as Ka'ib in Arabic. It is not intended as an erotic physical description of any part of the woman's body, as much as it is intended as a description of the girl in terms of the emergence of the signs of femininity in her, as an indication of her young age and youthfulness. Synonyms here. Say it twice, so that men would be attracted to her. So according to this source, which is it's one of the major fatwa type sites. I forgot to paste it here, but anyway, so that
that's on Islam. That's on Islam Q&A.
Okay, Q&A. That's right. That's right. There are two different Islam. There's Islam QA, Islam Q&A, and they're so similar that I forget which is
that's Islam QA.
QA. Okay, thank you. Anyway. At this age, the signs of femininity begin to appear in the girl. Begin to appear. Why is this being described? So that men will be attracted to her. So by this interpretation, the prime age of most attractiveness is when breast buds begin to form. This is typically 9 or 10. This is 9 or 10 years old. Breast buds are just forming. Okay? The point of using this word is not to describe the size of the breast, but to note their form or shape. Rather, their purpose is to highlight the woman's youthfulness. Why? To show how hot she is, to show how desirable she is. Because to Muhammad, this was the best woman to possibly copulate with. That's why. So we have Ibn al-Jawazi, who said the woman is a tifla, a little girl when she's small, Walida when she begins to walk, so that's toddler to up to the point of Ka'ib when her breasts begin to appear. But notice that there are 2 more stages, the second of which is when she has her first menses. So we have the Nahid when they increase in size, then Masar when she reaches the age of puberty. This means she begins to menstruate. So first you have Ka'ib, then you have Nahid, then you have Masar, where she first menstruates for the first time. So this is 2 stages before first menstruation. And then Khad, when she reaches, Khawd, when she reaches the age of a young woman. So you have breast buds, swelling, increasing size of breast before she has her first period, and then Khawd, when she is a young woman, that is today probably like 16 or 17. This is the earliest sign of puberty on her upper body. That is the age that this is. Now, why did Muhammad choose this? Because for him, that was his personal ideal in his experience.
But I think I'm staring at, because this also matches up with other Islamic teachings about why it's halal to marry a young woman. Because in other Islamic sources, you would have scholars and imams would be writing on marriage. They wouldn't describe the child marriage as being child marriage. They would describe a child that they're marrying off as a woman. And look at the wording. The woman is a tifla, which a little girl.
Yep. Well, that's
They-
because Nisa originally just meant female. Nisa is the
But
description
even in
of a newborn. But yeah.
No, but even if you go ahead, the word nisa wouldn't go. Let's say we're talking about a child.
Mm-hmm.
Nisa would be if you're speaking in regular Arabic, is outside of Islam Arabic, would be a woman, a
But
grown
Muhammad-
woman. But in Islam Arabic, it can mean
Yep.
a small child, a little girl.
Yeah, in the Quran, it's a newborn girl. Is whenever it says that they killed the sons or killed the males and let the females live, it's Nisa. They let the Nisa live. These are newborn girls. They're newborn girls.
Because language matters.
Yeah.
Language matters. Oh man.
So,
Yeah.
and that's true. We don't know for sure that he didn't have an innie. We do not know for sure that was that this was his actual length. That it could have been smaller. That is also true. But whatever it was, that is the result. The result is that forever, every Muslim in the world who is looking forward to Jannah, every man is looking forward to being with these huri, who are little girls. Now, there is a source that says that, you all will be all 30 years old, but by default, when Muhammad is addressing people, he's just addressing the men. There's nothing that's specific that says that even women will be 30 years old. All the huris, all of their spouses that they're married to in Jannah are all of equal age. If this is their age, then the huris and other spouses, the women, are all going to be these little girls. So, yeah. And so Muhammad, and apparently these rumors didn't die. They didn't die at all. So Muhammad had to make up this other story about another person, about another prophet, to explain why Muhammad definitely, absolutely doesn't have a teeny tiny peepee. And here is and this is a machine translation, so it's really rough. But basically, it's saying that in the Quran, when it says that Yahya, John the Baptist, they use a special word for pure or chaste, right? That the reason why he is chaste, meaning never having any intercourse with women, is because he had a teeny tiny peepee. So the argument going here is that if a prophet were to have a tiny penis, he would never have intercourse at all. Muhammad is well known to have intercourse. Therefore, Muhammad doesn't have a teeny tiny peepee. That is the brilliant argumentation, the syllogism that Muhammad presents here to our eyes. So, John the Baptist was a prophet who had a teeny tiny peepee. He was given that peepee by Allah so that he would be chaste forever and wouldn't have intercourse with anyone. And that's the only way. Keep in mind, it says every son of Adam would come on the day of resurrection with a sin, except for Yahya, because he couldn't have intercourse. That also tells you a lot about the Islamic mind.
Come on, man. Muhammad just want to normalize micro peepees. You don't have to stay celibate if you have.
He's actually saying that if you have a micro peepee, then you wouldn't be having sex.
But Muhammad did.
Well, no, but Muhammad's saying I definitely don't have a micro penis. I totally don't have a micro penis.
We
does not
don't
have
know
sex.
that. We
So-
don't know that. Maybe he's normalizing it and he's checking because okay, what about Moses?
Well, Moses, remember, had a normal penis. That's the whole thing.
He had a scrotal hernia.
Yeah, some of it says that he had a scrotal hernia. Or no, that was a rumor that he has scrotal hernia, but in reality, it's totally normal. And the stealing of the clothes was to dispel the rumors that he had something wrong with them. Oh, wait, Moses, you didn't have the rumored defect. All right. So again, it says, so Muhammad supposedly lowered his hand to the ground and took up a small stick, a little twig, and he said, that is because he did not have what men have except for something like this stick. And therefore, Allah called him a chaste man, a prophet from among the righteous. So here's Ibn Kathir regarding his saying chaste, that he is one who does not have relations with women. He is one who doesn't have children or semen. And so we have another version of this saying that there's no one who will meet Allah without sin except for Yahya. It's because he is chaste. And he picked up something from the ground and said the chaste one's thingy is like this. So Ibn Kathir in his version of it, he actually hates the one that's attributed to Muhammad. And he says, Muhammad definitely didn't say this. But we have this other version that says that someone else came up with this explanation, and this other person, that he must have been the actual source for this, not Muhammad. Certainly not Muhammad. Muhammad never would have said this. So he doesn't like the idea of any prophet having a small penis because it would be a defect, and he doesn't want his prophets to have any defects, physical defects. Qurtubi 2 also addresses this. So this one has the prophet picking up a speck from the ground, and he is saying his penis was like a speck of dust from the ground. He is like that. He restrained himself from disobeying because his penis was like the speck of dust from the ground.
Why is John the Baptist just catching strays? He's not even there.
Right?
To defend himself.
So again, the argument here is that Muhammad doesn't have a small stick, because if he did, he would have to be celibate. He's not celibate, so his stick is definitely not small. He has a sexual stamina and appetite of 30 men. He is definitely not small. So,
yeah, appetite for men? Yes.
Yes, that too. In conclusion, the fact that Muhammad had a sexual defect, it explains his infertility. So it's perfect.
It's Korah, Stan.
Thank you, Korah, Stan. He has this preoccupation with seeming virile. So he hears from Allah that it's not any defect in him that causes him not to have kids. Instead, it is, Allah is the one who makes all the decisions. He did not fail to give enough masculinity to these children to make them be boys, and those are definitely his kids. Allah just chose for them to be girls so that he would have no offspring to be his heir, because it's supposed to be in the world, which it was not. But anyway, it also compounded with his orphanhood to make him less than a man, making him desperate to prove himself to everyone as well. So his orphanhood led to him not having a position in society and also being sexually abused by other men in his tribe. And all this together made him desperate to be respected, desperate for authority in a way that other men would not be within his own society who weren't born into authority. It also explains how he was having intercourse with a 9-year-old without severely damaging her. It explains why he squatted, and it explains why he was specifically targeted with that urine hell prank that became part of Islam. And finally, it explains why in Islam today you are still having marriage with little girls and can't get rid of it because it's part of Muhammad's behavior and teaching, and why the ideal female to have intercourse with for Muhammad and the female with which all Muslims will have intercourse in Jannah is a barely beginning puberty tiny little girl, which is Tanner stage 2 and is pedophilia. So that is my conclusion. It seems very trivial at first, like, you're just saying he has a small penis, but really it deeply shaped the religion, incredibly damaging and messy.
Not deeply.
Yeah. In a metaphorical sense.
Yes,
Wait.
metaphorically. There you go. You get to be big.
I'm scared.
All right. Now I have to turn off this picture in picture. All right. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. Figured it out. Figured it out. Well, case seems pretty airtight to me, but we always listen to the people. We listen to the people. So we got to do a poll. Pardon
There
the
we
pun.
go.
It'll be a small poll. We're going to do a little poll, ladies and gentlemen. Just a little poll.
A micro poll.
Little micro poll here. All right. Have a little simple question. Little poll. Just a tiny, teeny little poll. Look in on my screen. It's about 1.8 inches. And it says, did Muhammad have a micro pee-pee? All right. You all can cast your votes now. This is your only chance to vote on this ever.
There we go.
And while you guys are voting, we'll take these super chats and then we'll check the results here. Speedrunner says, why do you always criticize Mo's pee-pee? Why don't you criticize pee-pees in the Talmud? Are you being paid by the Jews? This message sponsored by Sam Shamoon. You see? Wait, you don't see? You can't see. Leave Larry the cucumber out of this. Yeah, that's funny. Dizzle missed it. Al-Zut is a Yasser Qadi hole in the narrative. Oh, guys, holes in the narrative day is only a couple weeks away. Got a lot of work to do for that. The phallic dilemma. Isn't there a hadith where Muhammad said he had sex with Aisha, but Aisha thought he was possessed because she didn't feel it?
All the women.
None of them felt it. He wasn't having sex with any of them, but he thought he was, but they didn't notice. So either he was just imagining things or they just didn't notice. Uthman gathered fragments of the Quran written on leaves, rocks, and P cursive in the sand. That is true. Regarding the relation between Muhammad and Diha, I think it's obvious who was the one swinging the scimitar. Yep.
Oh my, that picture, that profile picture.
Yep. That's Mo and Dazut. And here we have another. Mary, was Muhammad never circumcised because he was too micro? I also heard Allah circumcised before he was born. That might explain things.
Yeah, there's some odd questions about whether or not Allah is circumcised. Very much a question.
Is it possible, just possible, that Mo was a she-male?
He did grow a beard, but some women can also grow beards if they have wacky enough hormones.
Is it possible this led to female genital mutilation? As in, if Muhammad's wives weren't satisfied, then no woman should be. Not that Mo was ever selfish like that.
Oh, it was a pagan practice. It was already happening.
And it's actually still happening. It is part of the Sunnah. While it's not commanded, it's recommended. Like it's there in the reliance of the traveler. This is
The cat is wanting to get my. Hang on, I'm gonna shed that. All right, the cat is trying to attack my shawl. So I think that it was just one of the many pagan things that he continued. So,
Like how we recycled the Kaaba, you know.
Here we
Yeah.
have micro intifada, micro jihad, micro dawa, micro pee. That is all correct. Too many Marys should always come with a warning. Puke bucket required on standby. Did you ever look into Mo, Aisha, Abu Bakr, Fatima? Check replies.
which check replies were? Sorry, I didn't. I was trying not to look at the chat because everybody was so completely.
That was smart.
They would
That
have,
was smart.
yeah, they would have really thrown me.
I want to
So-
shout out Martin Jackman in the chat. He commented testosterone injections about 30 can help. Just need 30 testosterone injections.
Nice.
That'll help you.
He thought it would.
Yeah. Hey guys, heard you were having a little show. Yeah, having a little show. Inshallah, my ummah has grown micro. Wait, so they did a Bonobo strategy of do everyone? Yeah, sounds like it. We have.
So
I saw-
what's really funny is that Lucian just started being interested in Islam right before I started this completely whacked out series. So the only thing he knows of me is that I cover all these completely depraved topics.
Yep, everyone. So if you want some weird stuff, you know where to ask. Lazy said, I saw the debate with Andrew. I spoke with my priest. He agrees with you, not Andrew. Yet the culture of, the ending yourself empathy is a double-edged sword that I'm trying to navigate. Thank you for standing firm. We have few crusaders, just big mouths. That sounds about right. It ain't zina if you can't feel it. That's true. That's Muhammad's motto. Is there a point when the argument of embarrassment is so much that it just can't be true anymore? Either this is one big Arab joke, or they have made the stories worse by trying to fix it. That is true. Does this explain the origin of jelking too? I don't know what that is. This is why they topped. Death doesn't even get you out of it. That's rough. Yeah, death doesn't even stop. In the Hadith of Muhammad, chapter 666, verse 69, it says, Aisha narrated the Prophet is saying, I'm a grower, not a shower. I swear it gets bigger. That's Al-Shia Bitri Fogel, blah, 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 blah. Mo says, anyone who looks at his privates will go blind. I wonder what he didn't want them looking at. That's the green light for Hezbollah then. How disgusting and rough. This is why he made up the story about Moses. Yeah, I think he said that before.
Yep, you predicted it. You connected the dots before I even got there.
Explains why Iran didn't give away the bodies without a price. It's halal muta, alhamdulillah. And then we had the one from Khorasan. It's not small, it's perfect. According to Korah, Allah is not omnipresent during his iddah. This is the proof he's not omnipresent during his iddah. David, I challenge you to a mambahala zoot zoot. Imagine Michelangelo was commissioned to sculpt Mo. He would have struggled to hone such a flat surface of an appendage. Muhammad is in hell right now, begging Jesus for mercy and forgiveness. Muhammad's second destination is the lake of fire.
Yep.
Ignore the soft parts, stupid YouTube safe. Ignore the soft parts, stupid YouTube safety measure. Muhammad's nickname is Eminem. Microsoft Muhammad. You know what they say about micro pee-pee? Big moles. You know what they say about people with a micro pee-pee? They got big moles in their prophets. Islamic textual corruption proven. Muhammad had sex with his aunt? No. Muhammad had sex with an ant. Check. When Ubaidullah saw him, he said, this Muhammad of yours is a dwarf and fat. The old man, i.e. Abu Basran, understood it. Yep. Now we know what they meant when they called him a dwarf.
And again, if you don't have sufficient testosterone, you won't grow as much as a man. You wouldn't go through as much of a pubertal growth spike. and you would also be heavier as well.
That's why you need testosterone supplements, which were hard to come by in the 7th century. But you know, where there's a will, there's a way.
There you go. You connected it.
I understand why Mo went the low Z center now. For Z, get it? Not low T's, low Z. This explains why the prophet. The channel is I Rode the Prophet. And he says, this is why the prophet wanted my strength. Is Mo P big enough to put holes in the narrative? Nope.
Oh no.
His followers did that for him. They're not required to burqa either. Meat market. Lacking, a group of women will giggle about it. 1% of this chat is having an anxiety attack now.
Oh.
When is Lucian's first vid coming? Also, when are you doing that manipulation tactics video? Yeah, sometime soon. We actually have Luke's video ready, but he went to his he went to an event for his brother. That's why the whole family's out of town. Whole family took off to go to that. Back here, but. Yeah, we'll record that Saturday. It's all ready. He prepared all the graphics he wants in there, all the quotations he wants, so it's all ready. We're gonna record it. Right before he left, but I was like, no, this is your first video. I don't want to like rush through it with the editing to get it out. So let's we'll do it when you get back.
By the way, my parents sometimes watch David Wood videos too. So imagine what they think.
Oh man. Uh-oh.
One of my kids watches David Wood, so.
Uh-oh.
That kid's an adult child watching this.
That kid's messed up forever. And then we have now we really know for sure he wasn't black. All right, so now we know for sure he wasn't black. Yeah, that was pointed out earlier. Oh. Super white. All right, guys. So I'm tallying up the results of the poll after 1.8 votes. Now, we had 366 votes. Did Muhammad have a micro PP? And 98% said yes. I would call that landslide agreement with Mary Harp that Mary Harp has indeed proven conclusively that Muhammad had a micro PP. This based on Islam's most trusted sources, and therefore Muslims can't deny it without throwing their own sources under the bus. And that would be cold-blooded of you guys. Don't do it. All right, everyone. That's about it. Final thoughts on this. Sarah, you were rudely reading comments instead of
no, I was. Yes. Well, talking about comments, I need a recent answer. Thaddeus said, Mary, your PP on the PP was inappropriately long.
Hey, look, it's been 2 hours and we made it all the way through, so like that's pretty fast. So
that was funny. No, Mary Harp did an amazing job at pointing out the facts that Muhammad did in fact have a micro peepee, and Muslims have to say thank you. That
yes.
Mm-hmm. So they all need to. No, the bigger point is that this is the bigger point. Okay.
Not the little point, the bigger one.
Not the little point. The bigger point is that they do need to go and thank you for defending the honor of Muhammad, just to show that, see, he did not harm Aisha. He had a small weenie. To say anything other than that would mean that he was a terrible human being who did not follow the harm principle.
Mm-hmm. So everyone,
he was a mercy upon mankind.
That's right. Muslims watching, you got to look on the bright side. This is your defense of Muhammad, that he did not harm Aisha because he was too small to harm anyone ever.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And therefore, we're going to have to drop the criticism, guys. Just admit this. The moment, we had 98% of people say Muhammad had a micro PP, but that's mostly non-Muslims. When 98% of guys, I agree to it here. I'm saying it right here. Matter of fact, we don't even need 98%. Just with 50% of Muslims globally, 50% will agree that Muhammad had a micro PP, I will never criticize his relationship with Aisha again. It's still messed up because she was a kid and so on. But that one gesture of you guys being honest will be met with a generous grant from me that I won't bring it up again. So just 50% of you. So billion Muslims admit that Muhammad had a micro PP. I won't talk about Aisha anymore. Deal?
I would still criticize it.
I didn't say anything about you. I said me.
Okay, I will keep criticizing it unless they make a fatwa.
Oh, of course, everyone's going to except me.
Only those Muslim men with micro peepees can follow the sunnah of having child brides.
There we are.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I'll stop.
Yep.
All right,
So
Mary,
again,
final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, it isn't just that Muhammad his entire life was completely disreputable, whacked out, grotesque, everything else, but that his personal life and issues are the very foundation upon which Allah's religion is founded. Everything that you find in Islam is about Muhammad's personal issues playing out, his personal preferences, his personal desires. Allah does indeed hurry to do his bidding, and we have to ask why. Why was Aisha's question appropriate? Why is Allah's viewpoint about what should be the reward for all of men be a view that only a man who has a micropenis would consider to be the ideal situation? Because whatever else you would actually prefer the body to look like if your desire is to have enjoyable intercourse, it would not be again, sorry for the detail, a prepubescent level of lubrication would not be involved with that. Why is it that Allah's final reward is this? Why is it that is the best? Why is the ideal to get an extremely young bride? Why does Allah endorse all of this? The only sane answer is that Allah is and always has been partly a cave demon and partly Muhammad's hand puppet. You can decide which percentages. And I just got scratched again. Oh my gosh.
You see, this is the proof she's been cursed by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I dared to pick up my shawl.
Your metaphorical mother.
Yep.
And here we have, what a great sermon today, D. Wood.
Oh dear.
Like the stream, by the way. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Be sure to screenshot some of those sources and be ready to share them with all your friends. The world needs to know that Muhammad had a micro PP. Now, what I'm concerned about is, you know how in the UK, how all those like gingers, people make fun of the gingers all their lives and then they convert to Islam? Well, you know, don't spread this a little, but not too much, because, you know, you don't want everyone being like, oh, I finally found a religion for me. Everyone makes fun of me, but now I will be a strong, real man like Muhammad. Yeah. You don't want to send people to Islam because then they're going to be like, oh, I just have to get 30 men of al-Zut and then I can be Superman like Muhammad. Ah, wow. Weird times. All right, guys. I'll be on Lord Willing 5 tomorrow with a historian to go through the historical Jesus part of Korah's debate. Korah doesn't know how to do history. And so we'll have an actual historian on to explain things to her and to explain why everything she says is the dumbest thing anyone has ever said in the history of humanity.
She doesn't know words. She doesn't know history. You see the part where she was like, oh, we don't believe that God is omnipresent, but he's only omnipresent in his knowledge. I mean, like, there's literally a word for that. There's a word. It's called omniscience.
Omniscience, yeah. It's weird stuff. But fun times, guys. All right, everyone. Thanks, Mary and Sarah, for joining us, and thanks everyone for making this super funny in the chat.
It
And
was awesome.
catch y'all next time.